Hello everyone, welcome to Trend Talks. And today I have the pleasure to talk with Santiago Estrada Fonseca. He's based in Brussels in Belgium. He is a commercial director at T.RE.ND, a leading technology and software as a service company, very much involved in digitalization of renewable energy and renewable energy assets. Santiago has a broad experience in both solar and wind energy, mostly related to assets and O&M. And he worked in several companies in the energy sector, among like Iberdrola, Suzlon Wind Energy, Cogelet Energy Group, and Negratin, and he's with T.RE.ND since 2016. Welcome, Santiago.
Thank you very much, Edwin. It is really a pleasure.
What's your outlook on the Spanish PV market?
It's important to say that the Spanish market has evolved. You know it very well. It has evolved. We've been up, we have been down. The situation today, and we can talk from T.RE.ND because we've been present in the market from 2019 and with the team that is now there since 2015. So we've been feeling the latest developments over there. The Spanish market, I would say, in PV has its own center of gravity. I'm sure guys like you feel it when you open up an event or something, immediately it attracts a lot of attention from everywhere, basically. The situation is, from my point of view, there has always been a very nice resource. It's the sun in Spain, the wind in Spain. From that particular perspective, it is a very evident market. Now, the rest of the parts of that market were not so evident at some point. So we needed political commitment, regulatory commitment, stability. I think now we are at that point. If you look at the opportunities of the market today, and with the push of the regulations and everything, the plan, the national energy plan, establishes objectives, very concrete objectives, like the 74% of the electricity generated by 2030 has to be renewable. That in PV has a very important impact, because that means that you can translate it to 35, 40 gigawatts that need to be connected by 2030, which is around the corner in terms of market timing. And today we are at 10 gigawatts in Spain. So that means if you do the numbers, that you need more or less 3 gigawatts to be added per year. Is it possible? Is it not impossible? But 2020, COVID year, we installed 2.5 more or less of PV in Spain. 2021, we will see. Normally we should better, but it's starting also a bit shaky, but we will see. My opinion is that in Spain today we have the opportunities, we have the mechanisms, because we have the right design for the auctions, the connections to merchant, CPPA, self-consumption. All these things are available. If you link it with a resource and the experience that the market has, I think we are in a very good moment. But
and that is probably leading to my second question, because if the resources are there, the market opportunity, the government policy, then the question is, how is it with the grid? And especially, I want to touch upon the new grid regulation. I think the grid to the access to the e-connection, yes. If I pronounce it rightly, yes. There is some news around that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, the very first good news on that is that it exists. Finally, we have it, because it has been long awaited by everybody inside and outside the Spanish PV market. It really comes with a lot of benefits. It does solve things that were not so evident or not so clear before. And just to mention a few, one of the main important things that I think this new royal decree brings is transparency, traceability. Now you're going to be able to follow the capacity on real time per the nose. And the audience that is watching us will say, wait a minute, let's put an asterisk to this, because there are still some things that need to be done. Yes, it is true. The websites with this real-time information are not fully ready yet, but at least the mechanisms are prepared. It also brings a lot of traceability and transparency when you are denied a connection point. And now they need to explain you what happened, what is the case, and also try to provide you with alternatives, if any. So this already is a big step forward. Of course, now you can request new connection points. They were frozen since July last year. You could not. There was a moratorium on this, and you could not do it. Now, of course, you can do it. The capacity of each node has been extended. Before there was a technical limit of 5% of the short circuit power per node. Now it is increased by 20%. That's not a minor increase. And then there are some other things. For example, the single node interlocutor, which is a bit of a controversial figure that came from the past. There has been some treatments around this. The people that know what I'm talking about immediately click on this. This new royal decree also puts its attention to solve this these things that were historical demand of the market.
So you would say it's an improvement overall. If you look at the intention and ambitions for the Spanish market, the growth, this will help.
Okay. Absolutely. But the thing is, again, you need to take these things with a bit of salt. It's very good to be advised by people who really understand. The devil is in the details. For example, we didn't talk about the grid bonds. The grid bonds, it's a very important matter, as you know very well, for any project developer. The procedure is clear. But there are changes on the way. If you are not selected or your point has not been selected, then how you get refunded, how much, when, these kind of things are details, and you need to know exactly what you are doing. And by the way, since we're talking about grid funds, this new royal decree really believes and boosts the hybridization of the grid. For example, the grid bond for a hybrid project is reduced to half. Instead of 40,000 euro per mega, it is 20,000 euro per mega. And I think it's going to dynamite the hybrid plants significantly.
Let's talk a little bit about this hybridization of renewable energy assets. So do you think that wind farm owners will step into PV, or is it or will there be more attention for storage in combination with solar and wind plants? What is your outlook on that?
All of the above. For me, the way I understand it, by the way, the way the royal decree talks about it is when you are, it defines hybridization when you're adding new technology, whether it is generation or storage or other. So it's important that we're talking about these things. It does have benefits, and especially for Spain. Think of Spain as a market that we mentioned it with a very high level of resource. It is a peninsula. That means that we have a lot of coastline that we couldn't really benefit from in offshore. I hope it will be the case. It will be the case now. We're going to improve on this. But these things have a lot of importance on the, in my opinion, benefits for hybridization. Now, you're going to be able to optimize the delivery energy delivered per node. For example, if you have a wind farm that was connected, I don't know, 10 years ago to a node, but because of certain reasons, because the wind turbines were obsolete or they're starting to get old, that you can now add PV linked to this.
Okay.
Careful, because there are some limitations to this. The original capacity that you were permitted to inject remains the same. So then you need to be careful with the curtailment. At the end of the day, you're going to have a ceiling. But you mentioned storage. Storage, you can dimension these situations, the PV that you put, for example, around a wind farm, so that the excedent can go to the storage, or why not to generate other renewable energy gases, for example, because there are a lot of initiatives that we are hearing of companies looking at how to produce renewable gas in the harbors, in the ports. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
This is a short bridge then to my final question. Yeah, more looking at the future and digitalization, which is part of your DNA in your company. So what do you see as an impact for digitalization in the business of renewable energy assets?
It's certainly, I was going to say, this is the future. It is not the future. It's a must for the present. Think about the hybrid projects that we mentioned 1 second ago. For example, for the grid, in the eyes of the grid, when you have a PV plant hybridized with a wind farm, they don't look at it as hybrid of wind plus PV. They look at it from one single renewable energy project. Now, you as an asset manager or as an owner need to have everything digitalized so that you can control that renewable energy project, and that things are not evident. That's one example of how digitalization can help asset managers when they're talking about performance, O&M operators when they're talking about how do I dispatch my people. Of course, IPPs when they're trading and they are looking for flexibility of their energy business. As a company, if you really want to assess the performance of all these combined portfolios from a high level perspective, because at the end, that's what you need to have, I always repeat it a lot, independent, agnostic from the hardware data acquisition and advanced analytics. And once you have it, you can start to see things and to do analytics. And at the end of the day, maximize the value of your renewable energy assets, because that's what we from T.RE.ND believe is the goal of digitalization in the industry.
Wow, nice. What nice words at the end. We're running out of the time, but I think I have the feeling we could have talked for an hour on all these interesting topics. I would like to thank you for your contribution and this interview, and I look forward to meeting you at one of our upcoming events very soon.
Looking forward. Thank you very much, Edwin.
Thank you very much, Santiago. Bye-bye.
Bye.